The rejuvenator is descending.
Hello and welcome to Spec'd Out. Today we're going to be going over a full spirit build for Infernus, the Ixian bartender. Infernus was the first character I really resonated with in Deadlock, and since I'm not great at third-person shooters, instead of forcing gunfights, I decided to experiment and just go full spirit to see what happened. To understand why that actually works, you need to know about Afterburn, which is damage over time that scales with spirit power and builds up with every shot, about 8% per bullet and 15% per headshot, so headshots stack it way faster. And here's the key part. Once Afterburn's applied, spirit items give you cooldown reduction, which means you can spam Flame Dash and Napalm way more often, and each cast refreshes those Afterburn ticks. So instead of the burn falling off, you're constantly resetting it, which means more uptime, more damage, and you don't have to aim nearly as much. Once I switched to full spirit, I started carrying a lot more games. For abilities, the order depends on your comfort level with the character. Let's start with the beginner path. You're going to start with 1 point in Afterburn for early trades, then max Flame Dash, max Concussive Combustion, and then max Napalm before finishing Afterburn. The reason this works for beginners is Napalm's an AoE spell, so it refreshes Afterburn without needing perfect headshots or precise stacking. You just cast it and the burn resets. Now, if you're more comfortable with the character and you're getting confident in landing headshots, I'd highly suggest going a different route instead. You're still going to start with 1 point in Afterburn, max Flame Dash, and max Concussive Combustion, but then you're going to take 1 point in Napalm for the extra charge, finish maxing Afterburn, and then max Napalm after that. This way you're scaling Afterburn earlier since you're confident with the headshot mechanics and stacking burn damage manually. Either way, the core idea stays the same. Flame Dash first for mobility and survival, Concussive Combustion for initiation and the stun combo, and then you're choosing between ability spam or burn scaling depending on where you're at with the character. For early game, we're building sustain and scaling items that set us up for mid and late game. First, I'd recommend Golden Goose Egg. Now this one's optional but highly suggested because it gives you a 10% damage penalty early on, which sucks, but you get a +1 movement speed, +1 out of combat regen, and the most important part, an active that hatches the egg, gaining souls and permanent buffs. The longer you hold it, the more value it gets. You'll typically sell this around the 30-minute mark once it's paid off and buy Ricochet with the extra souls you've accumulated. After that, build Sprint Boots, which then builds into Trophy Collector. Trophy Collector is also optional but highly recommended because it's huge for soul generation. You get +2 sprint speed, +2 out of combat regen, and whenever you score an assist or kill, you gain extra sprint, ability range, and passive soul generation. The best part for beginners is you only need to be near enemy deaths to count as an assist, so it's a great way to scale into mid and late game without needing perfect aim. From there, build Spirit Lifesteal, Bullet Lifesteal, and Mystic Vulnerability. These items are key for sustaining in lane, and Mystic Vulnerability gives you a little bit of Spirit Resist while also reducing Spirit Resist of the enemy. Once you've got your sustain and scaling items in place, we're moving into mid-game, where we're building the core Spirit items that make this build actually work. First is Rapid Recharge, which builds out of extra charge. Now here's the important part. You only want to buy Rapid Recharge if you're about to max out Flame Dash, because that's when you get the 2 charges and the spam potential that makes Rapid Recharge actually valuable. If you're not close to maxing Flame Dash yet, and it'll be a while, skip Rapid Recharge and build Extra Spirit or Improved Spirit instead to scale your damage while you're waiting. Once you do have Rapid Recharge, you can move into Extra Spirit, which builds into Improved Spirit for more spirit power across the board. After that, Leech for sustain, then Superior Duration and Superior Cooldown. These items are stacking your cooldowns and extending how long your buffs last, which directly feeds into the Flame Dash and Napalm spam that makes the spirit build work. Late game is where your build really comes together. Start with Escalating Exposure to reduce enemy spirit resist, then Boundless Spirit to increase your spirit power even more. From there, build Mystic Regeneration, which upgrades into Radiant Regeneration for sustain, then Spiritual Overflow for even more sustain and survivability. Superior cooldown from mid-game upgrades into Transcendent cooldown, which keeps stacking your cooldown reduction. Finally, build Frenzy and Indomitable for survivability. For beginners, I highly recommend these two because they're passive items, so you don't have to think about extra buttons to push, and they let you stay in fights longer and get in and out more easily. If you're more experienced, these two slots can flex depending on what the enemy team is building, but the core items before that are locked. Build is only half of it, so let's talk about how to actually play this. In lane, the priority is landing headshots to stack Afterburn fast, since that 15% headshot proc is how you win early trades against your lane opponent. But if headshots aren't clicking for you yet, don't force it. Shift your focus to farming and denying the enemy's souls or just securing your own safely. This build leans on scaling over time anyway, so even on an off day with your aim, you're still making some real progress. By mid-game, Guardians are usually already down or close to it, so I'm looking to gank other lanes. Even before Rapid recharges online, as long as my ult is up, if I've won my lane, I'll take a zipline over to another lane and help my team push, whether that's securing more Guardians or picking up a few extra kills. That's pretty much the early to mid-game pattern. Win your lane first, then use that advantage to help other lanes win theirs. In a fight, what I usually do is flame dash in, ult, stun, fire at the enemy's head to stack Afterburn, and then at that point I'm usually reloading and repositioning while I wait for Flame Dash to come back up. Once it's back, that's the moment to reassess. If the fight's still going well and the kill's there, I'll use it to finish them off. But if things have gone sideways, that same Flame Dash is your way out, so don't be afraid to use it to disengage instead of forcing a kill that isn't there anymore. Now, the biggest mistake with this build is expecting too much too early. You're genuinely weaker in the early game because of the items you're buying, since they're sustain and scaling items instead of pure damage. So it's hard to really gauge your damage potential until things come online. This build is about trusting the process and letting yourself build up over time, instead of judging the build off how it feels in those first several minutes. A couple of real downsides to be aware of with this build. First, it's genuinely vulnerable to heavy silence and disable compositions. Since your damage relies on ability spam, Flame Dash and Napalm refreshing Afterburn, getting silenced or disabled hits this build harder than it would hit a standard gun-focused Infernus, who can still just shoot through it. The late game Indomitable and Frenzy picks take some of the edge off that weakness, but they don't fully solve it. Second, if the enemy team snowballs early, this build can have a genuinely hard time recovering. Part of that comes down to the early items themselves. Golden Goose Egg gives you a 10% damage penalty, and Trophy Collector cuts your damage against NPCs by 15%. That makes farming a little trickier in those first several minutes, on top of investing in sustain and scaling instead of pure early damage, so you don't have a strong way to fight back if the game's already gotten out of hand before your core items come online. And that's pretty much the build. If this helped you understand Infernus a little better, consider subscribing to Spec'd Out. That's where I'll be covering more builds and breakdowns for people who want results without needing perfect aim. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.